Hold on. Okay, it's live.
All right, so to start off tonight, we're going to kind of talk about the paper a little bit, just for maybe like 5 minutes or so. Before I kind of get into my stuff about the paper, did you guys have any questions, or did you want to talk about like any of your problems or solutions with the group if you're kind of stuck, or you guys kind of have your own ideas going so far?
I think I'm good. I haven't talked to Eric yet, but I think we're pretty good. We just got to put it onto the document.
Okay.
Oh, good. I'm not quite finished with my part, but I know what I'm focusing on. So I will have something to you tomorrow morning. That's my homework for after our phone call.
Okay.
I think the sexual harassment problem is, I just need Melanie to, add it and kind of proofread it and see if she wants any changes done. But I think for the most part, it's pretty much done.
What about which problem? I think we need to say which one is the priority. Should we decide now?
Well, I think if we can just shoot having everything in by
Margaret, I think to answer your question, I think my opinion is that
my internet's going out. Are you guys still there?
Yes.
I think the sexual harassment is the biggest liability for the company at this point, given the many lawsuits and costly legal fees and stuff that could occur. So my opinion is that should be the most important.
And that's the one the sample paper picked as the priority. So I agree.
And yeah, so then I just kind of added that on the first one is, but of course, in the end, the paper needs to be edited and stuff, but anyways.
Well, if you guys can just try to have the information in by tomorrow night at midnight, then that should give me enough time on Thursday and Friday to kind of work on it.
Oh, that would be great.
Don't worry so much about like the formatting. It kind of goes goofy between Google Docs and Microsoft Word. So as long as you guys just get the information in there, I'll eventually end up doing it in like Microsoft Word and kind of making everything look pretty. And then if you guys could keep track of your references, and I wouldn't necessarily worry about like the numbering to follow like whoever put it before. If you guys just want to put in the references like problem 3, number 1, that kind of thing, and then I can kind of renumber it as a whole document when we're all finished. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all I wanted to talk about with the paper.
I have one more thing I wanted to talk about, and that is when we're leaders, what we're supposed to do. And Vanessa, you did everything that was required, and I learned, and I did as well. And I don't know what Brother Booney's talking about, answering the questions and the participation, but I think we should just not worry about it, because there's not even a place in the grading book for it. It's the grading book.
I checked the assignment, not only the instructions for the leader only, the little folder, and then the actual leader assignment. And I checked and I read through the whole thing, and it doesn't say anything about it.
I did too, because once I saw that posting he made, I'm like, wait a minute. He says we have to do 2 things.
Exactly.
Because as far as I could tell, I'm like, it's just the one.
Did your assignment get graded already?
No, it hasn't. Actually, I haven't.
Mine was, and it was an A. So I'm assuming, not worry about it. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
We can ask tomorrow or whatever.
Well, I asked, and he was, that was my question that he was posting, because I was so confused.
Yeah, and he didn't really answer it.
No,
he didn't answer
Thank
it
you.
at all.
You feel that way, because I'm like, okay, I'm still
waiting for the grading on the assignment that I turned in, and I got an F on it. And I know I texted him twice, I emailed him twice, but it hasn't been done. So I don't know if you guys got yours corrected, if you had any.
I still have 2 Fs on 2 assignments, and then I still have he actually gave me comments, like feedback on 2 of my assignments, but with no grades. And one of my feedbacks actually said something like, "Great comments, Valerie," and I'm like, okay, that's not my name, but that's okay.
Yeah, it'll all get fixed, I'm sure.
Oh, well, it just sucks to look at an F and then you see how much. Because mine, for some reason, it's the first self-assessment on lesson 1, and for some reason it says 36 points. So 0 out of 36
Me
points.
too.
So I have like a B plus, I think, or whatever it is. Everything else is an A.
I know what you mean. I hate to see. At least it doesn't pop out first thing as it did on I Learned 2, where you could see it all the time. At least now, unless I click on grades, I don't have to see it.
Yeah, it will get fixed.
All right. Any other questions?
To go back a little bit, but just to answer the question about Brother Bonnie's response, when he's talking about the questions, I think he's talking about the questions, you're giving a report on the questions that you ask as the leader. So there's not like a quiz or anything about your leader thing. You're just reporting on those questions. So that's all he was saying.
There's no place to submit it.
That's an additional instruction he just posted. Because the actual instructions for the leaders doesn't say anything about that. They don't say anything about that. You know what I mean? That's the confusion. Yeah.
No.
But anyway.
I don't know. I guess you guys can ask at the meeting tomorrow night, and we'll figure it out. But
clarify. All right, let's go.
All right. Well, we'll try and get through these questions a little bit quick. I mean, some of them are kind of, they kind of all go together. So hopefully you guys were able to read the case and about harassment. So does anyone want to take a stab at kind of giving a brief definition of what sexual harassment is?
Oh, Susan, you're mute.
Oh, I'm muted.
Other.
Try again.
Well, I actually just said that's a good question. A brief explanation of what sexual harassment is.
It's not very short.
Yeah, not short at all. I would say anything that is done by someone, either your coworker or a direct supervisor, that would make you feel uncomfortable.
Can I read the definition? So it says, welcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. Harassment does not have to be of a sexual nature. However, it can include offensive remarks about a person's sex.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and that's in the U.S. mostly, right? Because then we read about other countries and how it only involves sexual things, but here in the U.S. it talks about, sex as in I'm a woman, type
it's
of.
from the EOEC. Anyways, which is the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission.
Right. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
I will say
no, go ahead.
Sorry, I will say I only made it through page 5 thus far of the sexual harassment note. So sorry, I can't contribute in that area, at least.
Well, most of these questions are about the actual case, the Lone Star case. So if you've read that, then you'll be good. So one of the first questions, and I think, Susan, you would have read this part because it's kind of the beginning of that note paper, but is it quid pro quo or hostile work environment in the Martinez story? And this is just from the limited information that we caught from her phone conversation.
Are you asking if it is quid pro quo?
If you would say if it's quid pro quo or if it's a hostile work environment, which one would you label it as?
I would label it hostile work
environment.
Really?
I'm sorry,
I mean,
Vanessa, you said hostile?
I think it's hostile work environment.
I think it's a good mix. Even in reading the quid pro quo, it says sleep with me or you're fired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's not necessarily, and he hasn't implicated that, but she is certainly concerned about any action that she takes could potentially jeopardize her job.
Right.
Right.
It is kind of, it is kind of,
retaliation. That she's afraid of the retaliation if she reports the incident.
Right.
But he definitely. I mean, from what we read, I could be mistaken, but I didn't see anything about like, hey, sleep with me or you're going to be fired. Like he's just kind of like making the comments and constantly saying things to her. And I actually went through a problem like that. You know where? BYU Provo with a teacher. And I reported him. He was the international. He still is. He still works there. He still works as the international academic advisor, and he would ask me to show me my moves, my Brazilian moves, and dance to. And I'm like, no. And then he asked me for a massage. Oh, my neck is really hurting, and I'm like, he's from Peru, and this was back in the day. I was like 20 years old, and so I'm like, no, that's not appropriate. Like he was constantly making comments. It was never like sexually explicit, but it was awkward and inappropriate enough that I was actually on the following semester. I was a TA for one of his colleagues, and I can't remember how the conversation came up, but she just told me and encouraged me to make a report, like a written report, and I did. And he was I'm not sure what happened exactly, but I'm assuming he was reprimanded, and she told me that he was not allowed to talk to me at all, under any circumstances. So there was some consequence, but he's still there. And then this teacher of mine that I was a TA for, she said, why do I have a feeling that you're not the only one that's going through this? So it's just, anyways, it's really weird because I went through the entire semester with him either looking at me or we had a mock interview. We had to dress up and all of that, and he would say, why do you dress up like that for me every day? Like stuff not explicitly sexual, but
it is inappropriate though. Yeah.
Appropriate, and especially when he's so much older and I was like a 10-year-old kid. And I went through the whole semester thinking, he called me lazy. He used to call me lazy and say things to me, even though I got an A on his class. He's like, the problem with you is that you're lazy. And then this teacher of mine, she was like, that's typical predatory behavior. They make you feel like you're worthless and just kind of accept their, like parenting in a way, like, or influence. Like, oh, he's making me be a better person, or I need him for this or that. Kind of like, trying to affect my self-esteem. But he just couldn't do that because, I knew who I was, in a way. But anyways, it's a pretty murky, gray area. Sexual harassment is really weird, guys. It's can be as horrible as this case that we're talking about, or, an inconvenience like what I went through.
I think it's hard because it's so subjective. Like, it's not just, okay, 2 + 2 = this. It's like, he said, she said, does it apply to this situation or this one? It's definitely very subjective. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I think in this situation, I agree it is a hostile work environment because it was many times happening over and over. It's increasing. It's gaining momentum.
So why do you think like a lawyer representing the company would be like so insistent on Jack, and like instituting a formal investigation? Why do you think a lawyer would be so like, okay, you need to talk to someone?
Well, he said why, and it's because they don't want to have the company have knowledge of it and then be sued because they've known for this long.
right? There's a liability to investigate it. Even in the note, sorry, I'm going to it. Yeah, harassment by supervisors. Specifically, companies may be held liable for the harassing behavior of their supervisory employees. And you think about it from the perspective of if this woman is experiencing it, how many other potential employees are experiencing it? I rather love that the female or that the lawyer in the case is actually female. I don't know why that stands out to me, but
I think that's awesome.
that actually.
So what are some of the options that Jack could do at this point?
If he wants to play by the book, he needs to follow. He needs to follow what the lawyer instructed him to do. As hard as it is, because the company, and I was writing this on, for our paper on the sexual harassment section, but the company, oh my gosh, I just forgot what I was going to say. Brain, 37 weeks, pregnant. Anyways, but he just, okay, keep going. I'll remember.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so we're saying, so either he can submit, a formal investigation. What's his other option?
I don't think there's another option. He needs to pursue that.
Now that he knows what he's supposed to do, he needs to do it. And the moment he made that phone call, he kind of, without knowing.
Does he kind of owe it to the company to start an investigation? Like, I mean, what are some of the ethical reasons behind him having to report?
I think the biggest thing with the investigation is it doesn't just protect the company, it protects the victim as well, because by doing the investigation, you're getting documentation, proof, you're getting all the things that you need to know that, okay, this is happening, the victim is not lying or being misleading about what's happening, and then that way there's a recourse to support that person instead of it being a he said, she said. You can have documented proof and move through whatever the company's process is to handle that type of situation. So that's why I think it's important to go ahead and do the full investigation.
Right.
Well, and then additionally, if he doesn't report it, he's actually holding himself liable to potentially be charged down the road. Not necessarily, I don't want to say charged. Let's say, for example, this young lady decides to sue the company.
He'd be held liable.
So because he was privy to the information, he could be included in that lawsuit. Mm-hmm. And so protect himself as well. Not to say that that's the reason why anyone should make the decision to protect yourself. There's obviously a victim in this case and the company. That's a component of it.
So if Lone Star had a sexual harassment policy, do you think Jack knew about it? I mean, did it seem like he knew kind of what to do, or was he kind of more like deer in the headlights, like, what do I do?
The fact that he may or may not know what the policy is, if the policy is in fact there for the company, it doesn't matter. Especially as a supervisor or a person higher up in the management, he needs to know. And then if the department needs to do a better job at training employees, then that needs to be addressed as well. And I remember what I forgot. So what I was going to say is that he also, he needs to, I think that he needs to go ahead and report it, but, or at least go through the process of saying what he heard or overheard, and ensuring that the victim, or is her name Cynthia or whatever, that the victim is protected within the workplace, environment or premises, that she is protected from retaliation, whether it's verbal, psychological, emotional, or physical, that there needs to be a protection so that she can, feel safe, number one, and feel like she has rights and she needs to, she can go ahead and resolve the matter through the company. I don't know what I think.
Yeah, if it gets reported, she definitely can't get fired because that would just raise really big red flags as to why she was fired.
And if she gets fired, it's going to be a big lawsuit, and then it's like double the money.
A lot of companies can have a policy. They'll have a sexual harassment policy or many other things. In fact, the job I just had, I did all the safety and health training, and so we had a bunch of policies, but nobody knew what to do with them. So I was in charge of actually developing all the trainings, and we actually did sexual harassment and a bunch of other safety-related ones. And so I'm sure the company has it because they're supposed to have the policy, but whether the employees know about it or even know what to do with it is a whole separate issue.
Nowadays, most companies have training. My husband just has had his last job for the last couple of years, and the first day he had to go in and watch all these videos and all this stuff and all their policies to make sure that he's aware.
Yep, I work for the church, and we even have annual training on sexual harassment.
Yep.
That's actually kind of interesting.
People are people.
Yep.
Now I've got this going in my head. Please tell me you know it.
Yeah.
That was.
Okay.
This song, People Are
People. Mode, yes.
That's awesome. Well, part of this assignment is to come up with a sexual harassment policy. So there's just a couple different parts of it. We're not going to write a whole policy, but if someone gets harassed, how should they report it?
The open door policy is a good way to start, right? Because then you know that the person is welcome and is safe to talk about it and report it with the supervisor or the HR department. And I guess that's the order, anyways. Like your immediate supervisor, and then. But anyways, I think the open door policy is the start for sexual harassment reporting. But yeah.
That's good. How will confidentiality be protected in an investigation? Any ideas?
I think the best way for that, a lot of our programs that we created, we had like you're saying, you can go to the supervisor or HR person, but if that person is involved, you need to have an anonymous way to report. And then from there, you have anonymity built into the investigation process to protect the victim as much as it's possible, because at some point there might be information that you need to have about that person's identity to continue an investigation fully, but at least to start it can be anonymous.
Yeah.
I don't know that it can, though. I think the guidelines from that EEOC thing says that I was reading through it, and the procedure that they recommend to have established is that they have to identify the people involved. So I don't know that that's the. I don't know. I'm just saying, from what I read, I don't know that it should start. I'm not saying that it can't, but I don't know that it should start as an anonymous.
Well, anonymous to the point of you don't tell the person being accused who's accusing them.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think at some point, law-wise, you have to be able to address your accuser.
Right, but again, to start before you, again, to prevent any retaliation or that kind of thing, you need to get the first facts, and then you can go ahead once you have the first part built up. Then you okay, this is the story we have. Then you bring the whole story to both parties and make sure everything jives.
I still have mixed feelings
Right.
about the anonymous part, just because I don't think that it will help with the preliminary investigation. To investigate anything, you need to know. You gotta name names. You gotta know, and that's the problem with the victim. And I'm not saying that's an easy thing. I understand what you're saying, Zane. It makes sense. But I'm just saying that for the HR department, whoever is doing the preliminary investigation, there's only so much they can do if they don't know who is involved. Victim.
Oh no, they would know everything. I'm saying they don't tell the person being accused who the victim is at first.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
HR
Yeah,
people
because I would
know,
say like the
obviously.
confidentiality, like
Right.
Gotcha.
yeah, I would
Okay,
say
now I
not
understand.
telling. Yeah, I would say like maybe just not, like being confidential, not telling the whole world, or telling the harasser who started the report, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, what rights would the victims have, and then what rights would like the accused harasser have when these claims are made?
For investigation, like with anything, you gotta investigate the severeness of the conduct. You gotta interview. You gotta sit down with people and talk. You gotta see if you can find some facts or actual, because it could be also an email, or and that would be easy to trace back to, and see and evaluate if it was indeed a sexual harassment. But it's like all of us were saying earlier, it's such a gray area and it's so subjective. It's hard to, say this is what happened and then prove it, because it's one word against another. It's kind of hard, but you got to try to gather as many facts as possible.
Speaking to the rights of the employee, they should not expect to be fired, demoted, harassed, retaliated against for, reporting this, for being a whistleblower on this, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. The victim for sure has the right to be protected, like Susan said. She needs to be protected and feel safe in the work environment, and
Or
know that.
it can go both ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
I
Zane.
think too, the biggest thing I could say is the proper investigation, because it gives both the victim and the accused the opportunity to make sure that the facts are found. I know it doesn't happen a ton, but there are people who accuse wrongly, and that can be really bad. If you get fired for sexual harassment, you're not going to get a job anywhere else. So if you got fired appropriately, that would be pretty devastating to your livelihood.
That's
Right.
true. So that's why a thorough investigation needs to be done before any action is taken or any judgment is made, I think.
Right. That's
Can somebody
awesome.
send a link to Margaret again? Because I think she is having some issues with her computer.
I think she actually started this call.
I
Yeah,
was,
she
I was
started.
going to say she started this call, so
Oh,
I'm not
yeah,
sure
that's
how
right.
we're going to
It's
post
not being
it.
recorded. It's
You know,
not-
this actually happened on a call for me last night. The person who started it dropped off, but because they started it, they can actually join back on. So hopefully she figures out how to join back on.
Hopefully.
You want me to start another one, and I can invite her?
Guys, just a
Well,
minute.
if we do that, we'll lose this one. We'll lose what's already been recorded.
So this is still being recorded even though she's not here?
It's still, yeah, if you notice, it
Because
still
it's still
says live
live.
up in the corner.
Okay,
Ah.
so she just sent a message through Gmail. She's going to have to stop the broadcast and call us back. She says it's totally frozen on her side.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I'm just going to say, just read this to everyone.
Did we just hang up?
We are good with that. Hanging up now.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
And then she can just post 2 videos.
Sounds good.
So everybody hang up, and we'll talk to you shortly.
Okay, see you soon.